The city of New Kronos hummed beneath layers of shimmering neon and kinetic energy. Jay Solon zipped between temporal access gates on his grab bike, the courier's emblem glowing dimly on his jacket. His destination, Dock 7 of the Temple Exchange. Time couriers weren't just fast, they were ghosts in history. In 2340, information couldn't be trusted to networks anymore. Everything was watched, every byte traced. But couriers like Jace, they moved memories, maps, secrets, physically, across timelines. Jace skidded to a halt, his boots sparking against the metal floor. The operator, an old man named Goran, slid him a glowing cube. Destination? Jace asked, scanning the data tags. Alternate Sector 7A. July 9th, 2176. Goran said without eye contact. Deliver only to subject. El Marin. Jace frowned. El Marin? That name, it scratched something inside his head. A forgotten name. A whisper from a memory buried too deep. But the code was clear. Never question the package. Never open it. Always deliver. I'll take it. Within minutes, he was inside the time arc. The machine whirred with blue energy, lattices folding around him. With a jolt, he disappeared. The sky of 2176 was stained with amber clouds and ashfall. Jace arrived outside an abandoned metro station, the beacon from the cube pulsing faintly. He moved fast. Drones hovered in the skies. Surveillance was brutal in this sector. Inside the station, he found her. El Marin. She looked exactly like the holograph. Only, older. You came, she said. You were expecting me? She nodded and pulled out a device, a mirror cube like his. You delivered this to me 5 years ago, but the timeline collapsed. You never existed. Jace's breath caught. What are you saying? Elle held up her cube. It projected a video. It was him, Jace, from another reality. Burnt, dying. If you're watching this, then I'm gone. But you're not. And that means we still have a chance. Take the final package. Don't trust Chronocore. Don't trust anyone. And whatever you do, don't let the Time Eaters catch you. The message ended. Jace turned pale. This was a breach of everything he believed. His whole career. But somewhere in his gut, he knew it was true. He turned to Elle. Where's the package? She pointed to a shimmering rift behind her. Inside. But once you take it, you're marked. You'll never be safe again. Jace nodded. He stepped through, and time fractured. Jace staggered through the rift, entering a liminal corridor between dimensions. Colors shifted unnaturally. Gravity twisted sideways. He wasn't in any time or place. He was between. The package floated before him, a cube encased in energy. It pulsed like a heartbeat. As he reached out, a scream echoed to the corridor, deep guttural. Not human. He grabbed the cube. Immediately, a bolt of pain shot through his skull. Vision slammed into him. Cities burning, oceans frozen, skies torn apart. The singularity. And the Eaters, beings of raw entropy, shaped like twisted versions of lost time. One appeared before him. No face, only clock hands spinning backward across a void of shadow. Jace ran, back through the rift, into 2176. But it was no longer the same. Elle was gone. The station, now ruins, bombed, erased. The Eater had followed him through, but it didn't attack. It watched. It whispered in 1,000 dead languages. Courier collapse. You are the last. Jace activated his emergency return beacon. The arc triggered. He was pulled violently back to 2340. But something had followed him, and time was unraveling. Back in 2340, New Kronos had changed. Buildings shimmered with temporal instability. People flickered. Entire city blocks phased in and out of existence. Something was wrong. Jace landed hard outside Goran's terminal. But it wasn't Goran who greeted him. It was a young woman, dressed like a courier but with markings of a future beyond even his own. You brought it back, she said, nodding at the cube. Who are you? Nira. Time resistance. We've been waiting for you. She pulled him into a hidden lift, taking him deep below the city. Chronocores corrupted all timelines, she explained. They used couriers to send corrupted data, fragment of lies to control future events. But this, she pointed at his cube, is the last true chronologue, a map to the alpha time, before divergence. Jace stared at it. Why me? Because only a Jace that shouldn't exist can carry it. And you're from a collapse line. They reached the base of the resistance, a sprawling underground command center made of fractured timelines, tech from 2050, 2201, even 2987. We need to use the cube to find a prime shard, Nira continued. The core of all time. If we don't, the Eaters consume everything. Suddenly, alarms blared. Time Eaters had breached the outer corridor, and they were hunting him. The resistance launched into battle mode. Temporal weapons were activated. Chronoguns that fired time-freezing bullets, distortion mines, anti-causality grenades. Jace was handed a chronoblade. What am I supposed to do with this? He asked. Nira smirked. Don't die. The walls trembled. The first Eater seeped through the corridor, its form barely coherent, like a scream given shape. One touch and reality twisted. Jace fought. His blade hummed with temporal energy. Each strike he landed disrupted the Eater's coherence. But they were too many. Suddenly, the cube in his pocket activated. It projected a map, a route to the prime shard. It was on Mars, in a locked vault beneath the ruins of Vias Kronos. Nira yelled, Take the jump pod, get to the shard. Jace hesitated, but just for a moment. Then he ran. As the resistance held the line, he launched into the void. Light, endless light. Jace opened his eyes in a realm that was not a place. It was a construct, a library of all timelines, layered and braided into a cosmic lattice. He floated between strands of history, each one branching from a singular glowing core. 8 being awaited him there, tall, cloaked in shimmer, eyes of burning stardust. Neither human nor machine. I am Archivist, it said, custodian of Alpha Time. Jace could barely speak. Where am I? The origin, before divergence, before chronocore, before corruption. Vision swirled around him. The birth of time, the first courier, the sealing of the shard, the splintering of histories by those who sought control. You were chosen, Archivist said, because you are paradox. You exist outside the braid. That gives you power. Jace held up the cube. How do I stop the collapse? Unify the shards, restore the alpha thread, and sever Chronocore's anchors. Jace nodded slowly. Where are the rest? The lattice spun. 5 locations flared. Titan, Earth Core, Europa's ice vault, the lost city of Chronopolis, and the forbidden sky above Io. And the Time Eaters? He asked. They are the consequence of divergence, born from erased choices. They hunger for coherence. If you fail, they feast. The Archivist touched his forehead. Return now, last courier. Begin the final run. Time bent, and Jace fell. Jace awoke aboard a crashing ship, bound for Titan. The Resistance had sent coordinates, and a stealth drop pod intercepted him mid-fall. Inside was Nira, bloodied but alive. You made it, she said. We thought you were lost. Jace showed her the cube. I went to Alpha Time. Her eyes widened. Then it's real. They landed hard on Titan's methanized plains, where an old Chronocore facility stood buried beneath the frozen crust. Inside lay one of the anchor shards, and the first temporal anchor holding the timelines hostage. They fought their way through defense drone zero-gravity mines and echoes, flickers of dead couriers trapped in feedback loops. At the core, they found the shard embedded in a stasis engine. Shutting this down releases part of the braid, Jay said. But ITLL alert Chronocore. Do it, Nira said. Well, hold them off. He pulled the shard free. A scream ripped across the station. A Time Eater emerged, bloated and glitching, barely stable. But Jace was ready. The prime shard lit his blade, and he struck true. The Eater dissolved. 1 anchor down. 5 to go. Next stop, Earth Core. Buried miles beneath the planet's crust was a black archive, known only to couriers as Memory Fall. It stored every erased memory, every sense of truth, powered by a shard that warped identity itself. Jace and Nira descended in a gravity tunnel, light dimming as they neared the core. They encountered forgotten people, ghosts of those whose timelines were erased. Some were friendly, others hostile. One recognized Jace. "I remember you," the man croaked. "You delivered me, before they took my name." Jace gave him a nod. "You're not forgotten anymore." At the heart of Memory Fall, the second anchor shard pulsed in a web of neural vines. Nira hesitated. "This one's different. It holds people." Jace nodded grimly. "We have to choose. Release the shard and free them, or keep it here and contain the pain." "I choose freedom," Nira said. He pulled the shard. The web collapsed. Voices filled the tunnels. Shouts, cries, songs. Forgotten lives restored. And behind them, the walls cracked. Chronocore was coming. Back in New Chronos, the city burned. Chronocore had declared martial lockdown. Couriers were being hunted. Resistance cells collapsed. Time itself flickered across the skyline like static. Jace and Nira arrived at an abandoned exchange node, only to find someone waiting. "Thought you could run from the code, boy?" It was Goran, alive, armed, wearing full Chronocore armor. "You were one of us." Jace said, "A courier." "I am the code," Goran growled. "You think Alpha Time chose you? It chose no one. You were a backup, a failsafe, and I'm here to end the loop." He activated a ripple mine. Nira was flung aside. Jay stood firm. "You don't scare me." "You should," Goran whispered. "Because you." The mask peeled away. It was Jace, an older version, from a future where he failed and joined the enemy. He raised his blade. "So let's end this," Jace said. Time buckled, and they changed. The blades clashed with thunder paradox. Jace fought against himself, his future self. Every strike echoing across fractured timelines. Goran, the older Jace, moved with precision, knowing every technique, every instinct. "Why?" Jace shouted, parrying a high slash. "Why betray everything?" "Because truth doesn't save people. Order does." Goran roared. They battled across rooftops flickering between centuries. A blow sent Jace crashing through a glass atrium, landing beside a broken archive server. As he crawled up, memories not his own bled into his vision. Cities had never seen, lives had never lived. Goran's memories. "You're me if I lose hope," Jace muttered. Goran descended, blade raised. Before he could strike, a pulse from the prime shard in Jace's pocket triggered a shockwave, freezing time for all but them. A woman emerged from the rift, the archivist. "Enough," she said. She touched both versions of Jace. "Two choices. One truth. Only one of you can continue." Jace saw flashes, Goran's fall, the resistance crushed, timelines devoured. He turned to Goran. "We can fix this." "You already have," Goran said softly. Then he smiled and vanished, willingly erased. Time resumed. Jace stood alone, and he knew what came next. The next shard lay buried in the ice trenches of Europa. Beneath sulfur skies and glass glaciers, Jace and Nira descended into a frozen crypt built by the first travelers. A race lost of time. Within the vault, they found echoes, recordings of events yet to happen. Futures watching them, whispering to them. Nira clutched her head. "These voices, they're us." Jace nodded. "Or versions of us who failed." The anchor shard floated in a stasis prism, guarded by a memory beast. A creature made of regrets, flickering between forms of people Jace had failed to save. He stepped forward. "You're not real." The beast roared. They fought through illusions and despair. Every strike required belief. Every step forward demanded certainty. At the heart of it, Jace touched the shard and accepted his regrets. The beast crumbled. The anchor dissolved. Europa was silent again. Chronopolis was a paradox city, a place where every second existed simultaneously. It shimmered like a broken prism. Here, Chronocore's elite ruled from floating citadels. The resistance launched a final assault. Jace, Nira, and a battalion of rogue couriers entered through fractured corridors. They moved like shadows between seconds. The objective: destroy the Nexus anchor, the shard fueling Chronocore's ability to manipulate time. Inside the Citadel, They found the Nexus chamber guarded by engineered soldiers, spliced with bits of lost timelines, monsters of tech and trauma. Nero was wounded. Jace had to go alone. He reached the shard. The prime shard glowed, reacting. Jace fused the two, triggering a chain reaction. The Nexus imploded, taking the Citadel with it. As he escaped through a temporal rift, he looked back. Chronopolis burned, and for the first time, Chrono Core screamed. The final shard was hidden in orbit above Io, where a floating station known as the Cradle drifted among lightning storms. It was built by the founders, the ones who first discovered time travel. Jace arrived alone. Nero remained on Mars, recovering. Inside the Cradle, he faced the Architect, a being older than time travel itself. Not human, not hostile, simply calculating. You've come for the Shard of Decision, the Architect said. But to take it, you must surrender something. Jace nodded. My future. The Architect studied him. Brave, foolish, expected. Jace stepped into the eye of the storm, a sphere of pure possibility. He saw every version of himself. Jace awoke in Alpha Time. All shards fused, the lattice realigned. The Archivist appeared, flanked by echoes of all the timelines he had saved. You've done what no one else could, she said, restored the thread. But Jace was fading. His existence, a paradox, could no longer be sustained. I knew this would happen, he said. Nero appeared. Somehow, the timeline had pulled her in. We can anchor you. No, Jace smiled. I was meant to deliver, not remain. He handed her the cube. You're the new courier now. With a final smile, Jace dissolved into threads of light. Alpha Time pulsed, and a new era began. The confrontation triggered a temporal backlash. Time fractured around Jace, showing him glimpses of every version of himself that had ever existed and been erased. Some were warriors, some were peaceful engineers, others tyrants. They all converged. You are the convergence point, said a version of Jace who bore a crown of burning light. You carry the last thread. I'm just a courier, Jace replied, shaken. But you're also the message. Each version offered a piece of knowledge, a puzzle piece of the Chrono Core's full sequence. It wasn't just a device, it was a key, a reset, a seed of a new timeline. Back in real space, Reyna fought the Time Eater alone, dodging tentacles of corrupted chronology. Jace, come back, she screamed. He had to return, but not before he made a choice. The stabilizer began to break down. Collapse imminent, Cora warned. Either return or become part of the entropy. Jace burst back to the time stream just as the Chrono Core snapped into place. The pulse it released drove the Time Eater back. But not for long. We have to plant the seed, he told Reyna. A new anchor timeline. Something purer. But that means overriding this reality. Everything we know, gone. He looked at the final message, written in his handwriting. Time stamped from 300 years in the future. This one's corrupted already. We can't fix it. We can only restart. Together, they raced toward the singularity chamber deep within the decay zone, a place that defied time completely. Inside the chamber, the Chrono Core began syncing with the singularity nexus. Time around them stilled. Jace heard everything. The birth of the universe, the death of stars, the laughter of his mother, the scream of timelines devoured. He felt every courier who had failed, every version of himself who had tried. He broadcast the origin signal. A wave pulsed outward. Not destruction, not erasure, but rebirth. Time screamed as the Time Eaters lunged, but too late. The signal reached critical mass. The decay zone folded inward. Jace turned to Reyna. It's been an honor. They held hands as everything turned white. Silence. Then breath. Then wind. Reyna opened her eyes to blue skies and a soft breeze. She was standing in a meadow Earth? No, a new version. The world was young, untouched. No corporate overlords. No surveillance networks. No Time Eaters. And no Jace. She felt the Chrono Core in her pocket, now inert. A single message blinked. You made it. Build something better. Gee. Tears rolled down her face. Cora's voice returned, calmer now, no longer bound by corrupted logic. Welcome to Thread Zero. Raina looked at the horizon. Somewhere, sometime, she would honor Jace's final delivery. Years passed. Raina became a founder of the Chrono Accord, guardians of time, protectors of Thread Zero. Chrono couriers were no longer runners, but educators and watchers. Time travel became a responsibility, not a weapon. One day, a young girl approached Raina. "I found this," she said, holding a small device that looked exactly like Jace's chrono glove. Raina froze. "Where did you get that?" "It found me," the girl said. "It showed me things. Futures. A man with silver eyes." Raina smiled, tears in her eyes. Then it's starting again. She looked up at the sky, whispering to the wind. "Thank you, Jay Solon, the last courier." Thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button for more content like this.